The governor in Florida said that Florida was the place where woke came to die. I must say that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I don't know how a person could stand up behind a podium and declare that loudly and be proud of what he said. And the thing that was really scary was that all of the people listening began to clap, not even realizing the foolishness, and that what he was saying is that a desire for wisdom and knowledge and social justice and support of those who are lesser than we are when it comes to the economy dies here. And that's the problem nowadays, you see. People listen to too many slogans, too many labels, too many stereotypes to really realize what's going on anymore. That's because we have begun to separate things. We separate spirituality from religion, from the politics, from the arts, when in truth, they're all just one thing. They're all connected. We pretend like they're not connected. We choose different words and different vocabulary for each one. We have people specialize in each one so that it's hard for us to begin to understand what the other person is saying or to interpret it. And that way, we lose our power. The truth is that it's all one thing. And that all one thing is about spiritual growth and returning back to the source, no matter what we call that source. In Wan Buddhism, they speak of this source as being the universal mind. You see, they say that the universe is made of this universal mind or a universal consciousness. They don't talk about it as God or a God. They talk about it as a living, breathing, moving consciousness and mind. And they say that we are all part of this mind. And the way we connect back with this universal mind is by realizing who we are. We realize that all of these names and faces and labels are artificial manifestations of what we have taken in, claimed as being real, and then work together with others to make real. They want us to go beyond these ideas, the symbols, the images that we've been given and accepted, to get to the real. And so, all of this division, dividing things up, putting them together in pieces, making up new labels, making up specializations, only serve to do one thing: to freeze us in time and space, and to stop us from getting to the real, to getting to the full understanding of the way things are and what is happening in our lives. There's a story many of you probably heard about an elephant and five blind men, and one blind man grabbed the nose of the elephant. He thought that the elephant was like a snake. The other one grabbed the ears, and he described the elephant as a leaf. One grabbed the side of the elephant and thought the elephant was a creature like a wall. The other one grabbed his leg and thought that the elephant was a creature like a stump, and the last one grabbed the tail. And he thought the elephant was like a rope. They never got together. They never talked about what they experienced. What they did was start these small groups and camps that locked on to only one little part of the elephant, knowing that they were missing the whole thing. And that is what our society does with us, with all of the specialization. Yes, you become an expert on the tail of the elephant, but you don't know what the elephant looks like if you only know the tail. But we are told, you see, that knowing everything about the tail is better than knowing what the elephant is about. In this sense, we never see the real elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room I'm talking about is what biblically they talk about as being at war with the spiritual. locking ourselves in these little boxes and depending on what other people tell us constantly is at war with the personal growth that we need to have in order to expand ourselves and our minds and to merge back with that universal mind, that universal consciousness, that which some people call creator or God is the name, is not important because the name, you see, is just something that comes from specialization. It comes from groups of people who know one or two aspects of that great power of the divine, and they latch on to those small aspects, and like the blind men with the element, they fight like crazy, saying that their idea is the only correct one, when other people have been studying different parts of the same thing for thousands and thousands of years. And the way that we begin to understand the world and how we should live in it is not by separating ourselves into little groups. No. It's by getting to know the people who have experienced something in a different way. We know the elephant by knowing others and being able to look at their perceptions and viewpoints. We know the elephant in the room. What is stopping us from knowing the elephant? The big elephant, the same way. It's all about talking. Talking and exploring the many different perspectives of things. Sometimes we may not agree with them, sometimes we may agree with them, but the idea is that we look at them, we explore them, we think, we bring our mind out of the little boxes that they put us into, so that we can at least begin to merge with that consciousness and that creative energy at the center of the universe. And when we can do that, we can no longer be deceived. We can no longer be put down. We can feel sad sometimes, but we won't feel devastated. We won't feel depressed. We will no longer suppress ourselves. And if we do suppress ourselves, it will be something we do on purpose, because that is the correct thing to do at the correct time. When we begin to think critically, the heart and the head connects, and no one will ever be able to lie to us again or deceive us again. But in order to do that, there's something that we need to be able to do, and that is the cleansing of the heart and mind. We need to cleanse the heart, the feelings, the attitude, and all of those things, and the mind, because our hearts have been broken so many times by the injustices we have seen in the world that we've had to cover it almost with a big, thick callus in order to not be in tears all of our lives. Many of you have probably experienced it. And many of you have probably forgotten the experience because it was too painful. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about. In this world, in this system anyway, Matthew Fox talks about it as being like a ladder. At a ladder, one notices that there is very little room at the top. Everybody cannot climb up to the top of the ladder or the ladder falls down. Someone must be at the bottom of the ladder to hold the ladder if people are climbing up on the top. We are in a system that says things are like a ladder. I would say they're like a pyramid. A pyramid with the many at the bottom supporting the people in the middle who are supporting the very small group at the top. and we learn our place in this pyramid. We learn how to function. We learn how to work. We learn how to do a job. And even the religions sometimes are not connected with freedom. They're given to us like an opioid. Opium. Opium that is used to kill the pain while we continue to do the types of things that causes pain. And that is why religion was referred to by Karl Marx as the opiate of the society and the sigh of the oppressed. It's time, you see, for us to stop using religion as the opiate of the society and to use it for what it was meant for, the sigh of the oppressed. That which allows us to let go of the feeling of being stepped on, to let go of all of the put downs, let go of all of the negativity that has been passed down from the small group at the top of this pyramid, so that we can have the strength to go forward, so we can have the strength to flatten this pyramid, and then we can see who and what we are and what the world truly is. Now, many of you will be able to tell me exactly what the world is. All of the materials scientists have studied for years, and in the 1800s, the late 1800s, they wrote books where they decided that they had the answers to everything in the world. They can tell you about the atoms, the quarks, the neutrons, and all the things that the world's made of. The geological scientists can tell you about the stones. People can tell you about the rivers. All of these people can tell you what the world is. But when I'm talking about what the world is, I am not talking about the little small parts that they can explain. I'm talking about the whole. Each and everything. Every plant, every animal, every insect, the earth itself. That is what I mean by the world. How many people know what the world is? Really? How many people know how to explain walking along a beach at night when there's quiet, a soft breeze, when they're in a safe place, when the moon is up and there are stars and they can hear the sound of the waves coming in and out, and when something happens, when that person begins to lose the sense of separation from the earth, the sky, the water, and all those stars and waves, and begins to expand and become something else, something that's unspeakable, something that's wonderful, something that's beautiful. When that person merges with everything and forgets all of the put downs, all of the duties, all of the things that they are told they should be, the way that they feel about the way they look, or what car they're driving, or where they're living, or what their education level is. This is what I mean by the world, the system, the thoughts, the feelings, the identity, all of these things mixed together, which produce wonderment if one has not learned to fear them. Our separation, our words, our specializations, and all of these things are created so that we know enough to manipulate each other and the world. You see, because science was created in order to find ways to survive and to manipulate nature, and later it became ways to manipulate people and individuals. You cannot find spirituality through the cold type of science that they are pushing on us today. But when it is merged with everything else, religion, the arts, science, spirituality, all of these things, and we recognize them as one, it is a fabulous tool. It is somewhat like the ego that we have, our little ego that we created as a tool. The tool that is a replica of the scientific inquiry. It was created so that we could look at the world, perceive it, understand it, and we could manipulate the environment enough for us to survive. Manipulate relationships enough for us to be able to survive as helpless beings in a world that we just could not understand. And so you see, science has become an extension of the human ego. And like the human ego, we have began to idolize the tool instead of realizing that it is a tool and we are the greater. We begin to work to support the tool and to uphold how great the tool is and to believe that our greatness and goodness comes from the tool of the ego and its extension, science, instead of realizing that it should be serving us. It's time to have these things serve us. And the only way to do it is to break down the artificial walls that those at the top of the pyramid have created to keep us helpless and struggling. We're living in a world of abundance, yet we are taught to think that there's scarcity and not enough for everyone. There was an article about depopulation. They were saying there were so many people in the world. The population was overgrowing and destroying the world, and we needed to depopulate, have less people in the world. But another article came out that said that that was foolishness. It said that if we took all of the people on this continent, we could cram all of those people into the state of Texas and still have open land there. Most of the world has open land that is usually owned by some absentee landlord or a state or a country or something like that that people are not allowed to live in or to grow crops in or to use to create energy by hydro plants and things like that. It's created scarcity. We create the cramming. And this once again fits with the knowledge that we live in a world of abundance, but we have trained ourselves or have been trained to live in a world of scarcity. And I think that all of us on some subconscious level, we all know that. We all know that the things going on right now are just terrible. Many of us go to work, and in our jobs we have to do things that we know are not good. When you have the tension among various races or ethnicities, it is because some races or ethnicities who have to do horrible things to others to maintain their freedom and stay on top realize that what they're doing is horrible, immoral, and ungodly, and so they have to dehumanize the group that they're doing it to because they cannot live with the knowledge that they are hurting other people in order just to have extra things themselves. So they have to rationalize it. They have to make up stereotypes, negative stereotypes about other people. They have to keep putting them down. They have to separate themselves from those people so they don't feel bad. But in truth, in a deep, dark, subconscious way, they know that most of the excuses they are making are bullshit. Any intelligent person knows that. But instead of admitting that, they create more and more of a delusion, repeating over and over to themselves the lies, the twisted ideas. And then they hang around with groups of people who will help sustain that delusion or that lie by saying the same thing over and over again so that they can ignore the truth. But we have come to a time in this nation where the truth is growing, somewhat like a picture I saw of a small tree busting through a concrete sidewalk. It is growing. The truth is standing right in front of us, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it from happening. The question is, are we going to embrace the truth or keep our eyes closed, as we have in the past? In this nation, at least, the past 400 or 500 years. It's time for us to wake up, and it's time for places like Florida and Texas and Wisconsin to wake up. It's time for sleeping to die. It's easy to pretend to be asleep, to blame one's problems on other people, to punch down, to step on those with less power, to maintain oneself on this hierarchical pyramid, and to kiss up to those who are above. The problem is that eventually it deteriorates the soul. And the problem is that the coming generations, one's own children, begin to disrespect their parents when they know the truth and discover that their own parents didn't love didn't love their neighbor or the world enough to stop the pain and suffering, to stop all of the racism and homophobia and hatred, to stop false religions, false Christianity and false Islam that depended on wars and put downs and using hell as a whip to maintain power. They realized that their parents failed at making a world that would be beneficial for them and their children and children's children. And they lose respect for those people. More and more each generation, as the information begins to flow as it is today, and they learn, they bear the shame that their parents and generations of ascendants before them were too ignorant to even bear. And so let us support the young, give them the strength to go forward, not stomp on them when they try to make the world go right. Someone has to do it, and our generation, to be truthful, did work to do it, worked hard, changed a lot of things. But then, as usual, when everything was clean and swept out, the tricksters, the manipulators, the thieves, the evil people snuck in, took over the institutions, stole the power, and began to move things backwards again. There is an old biblical story or saying I'd like to end with, and I'd like you to consider what it means. There was a teaching where these demons were supposed to be cast out of someone, and Jesus said something like this: when a demon is cast out, it goes out and it finds 7 more demons who are worse than itself, and then it comes back to the place where it was cast out, and they find it all clean and beautiful and in order, and then they all inhabit it, making it worse than it was before. Welcome to America. Welcome. Thanks for visiting and being with us. Hit the bell. Maybe give us a thumb up and leave some comments. Maybe you can leave a message about what you'd like to hear us talk about. A lot of this comes from a lot of reading, a lot of studying, but part of it comes from opening ourselves to the divine energy and sort of channeling that energy straight through without blocking it. It comes from staying in a state of meditation and letting the universal mind speak. And so we can speak on most subjects. Drop some suggestion down there in the description, and we'll speak on it for you. And perhaps someday we will have a live discussion here on this YouTube, and we can grow in a greater understanding of the way the world really is and how we can free ourselves from all of the many boxes that we've been put into. And we can use the ego as a tool that it was meant to be used as, not worship it, not have wars and fights over someone putting down our little ego as if they are putting down who we are. No, we will realize that we are the ones who created the ego. We are this divinity, this universal mind, and we can tap in to that true part of ourselves, that larger self, in order to use the ego, the mind, as we want. For more information, visit us at our website. You'll find that in the description. And have fun until the next video. Namaste, everyone.